All right, so I'm going to walk you through that stage of immersion that we did today in my third grade classroom. I was going to videotape it, but then it would have been like a 45-minute long lesson, so I didn't want to do that. But I was just going to kind of walk you through what we did today for that immersion. Now remember, immersion goes for an entire week. So there's very little writing in that immersion phase. This is when you are getting them all ready for your unit of study. You're prepping them on the things that you want to see in their writing through the different mentor text. You are making your anchor charts together. You are noticing things that you want to include in your own writing, but they are not making books yet. The whole goal of that immersion phase is to get them so excited to write themselves that after that week they are so excited that when it's time to write, they take off. So I have my stack of books that I shared with you last week, the ones that I'm using. And then today we focused on the book Chrysanthemum. So we're focused on those character feelings changing throughout the book, what causes them to change, and then how we can tell. And then this is kind of the gesture that we would use for when I wanted them to tell me how they changed, because they kept getting confused on how can we tell she's sad? They would say, well, they were making fun of her. That's not how we can tell, that's what happened. So we always showed that tell is kind of like what your face looks like or what your body is doing to tell that certain feeling. So those are just kind of the simple kind of scaffolds to help ELs understand a little bit better. It gives them that memory marker that we talked about. So in Chrysanthemum today, we read through this and then we had an anchor chart that I'll show you in a minute. But what I did was we started with just talking about how Chrysanthemum felt at the beginning of the story. So we can tell that she's happy at the beginning of the story. And then what I did, I said, okay, now remember happy. When her feeling changes, I want you to raise your hand. So then as we're reading through and they could tell that her feeling changed, they would raise their hand. And then what we had to do was we had to say what caused that change and then why, or like how can we tell that she is now happy. So we went through and then so she loves her name. This is when she's happy. She gets to school. It's her first time going to school. And then the students start to make fun of her name. So then it says on this page that she wilted, and you could tell by her face, and that's when the students raised their hands. So then we would say, okay, what caused the change? Why is she now sad? And they said, because the kids are making fun of her. How can you tell she is sad? And they were like, well, if you look at her face, it looks very sad. And then the author also said that she wilted, which we talked about what that meant. So those are just ways that during that immersion phase, I want them to really start thinking about how they can add that to their writing. So one thing we talked about was that we could definitely tell that Chrysanthemum was sad because of her facial expressions, and then she would get happy because of her facial expressions. So then I showed them my book, Addie's Crazy Day. And I didn't read this to them today, but I said that one thing I want to make sure that I try in my book is adding those facial expressions. So then we make a chart of things I want to try in my writing. One thing we added to the chart were facial expressions. So I want to make sure that when I'm saying a character is feeling a certain way, that I show it in their face. So I haven't read this to them yet, and I haven't even drawn my pictures yet. So that's something that I'll have to add so that I can show that you could tell because of their facial expressions. Now, something that we're doing to really get it to stick that we're focused on character feelings is we're making a chart.